Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Lovely people of LinkedIn and YouTube. Um, Another Monday, another LinkedIn Live, another great interview. For all of you who don't know yet, you can watch replays of past interviews on our YouTube channel. Just search for Fail Coach or my name, and it will pop up immediately. We have like a nice playlist of all the past interviews, and you can go through while you're there. Like, subscribe, you know the drill. But before I go into too much random rambling, today we have an amazing guest, Csaba, with a very interesting title, Uncommon Mindset for Entrepreneurs. I love it when the titles are a little bit more mysterious. But Csaba, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. And if you could quickly introduce yourself to the audience first.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Csaba. I'm the founder of ICQ Global and the author of The Uncommon Mindset in Unusual Times.
Okay, that was a super fast introduction. So tell me a little bit, what is the uncommon mindset for the entrepreneurs? It's a little bit mysterious, the whole title. What do you regard as the uncommon mindset?
Instead of answering the question, I would love to ask one instead. What do you think common sense is? What's your definition?
Common sense or common mindset?
Just common sense. What does it mean to you?
Well, what it means to me might not mean the same to others. It's, I guess, the way I understand the world, and whatever checks the check mark, I say, okay, yes, this is truth, or I believe this, or that's correct. And whatever doesn't check that check mark might be, ooh, look at this is wrong, or something like that. I guess that would be my answer.
Yeah, exactly. Common sense is really popular nowadays, and a lot of people are expecting it. Indeed, they are demanding it, and also they are praising other people for having common sense. But the definition is exactly what you said, that we expect people to come to the same conclusion as us, even though they have a completely different background and perspective. So when we talk about the uncommon mindset, it's the ability to see the same situation from different perspectives so we can make better decisions. And we can choose to respond instead of just reacting. So for example, if there's a disagreement between you and me, and I know I'm right, it's obvious that you're wrong. And if there's no psychological safety and trust between you and me, then I have to protect my ego. And I have to be right instead of getting it right. And that's dangerous. And the default position is that if I know I'm right, it is obvious that you're wrong. Instead of looking at it from a different angle, that I know that it makes sense from your perspective. So let's ask the right questions. What do you know that I don't? What can you see that I cannot? If we are able to do this, then diversity can lead to innovation. Otherwise, it turns into painful liability. And this is what I see as a foundation for entrepreneurship, which is probably the toughest personal development course in the world.
Yeah, at least one of the hardest for sure. Yes, you really have to be a little Swiss Army knife of all the different things that go into the whole entrepreneurship thing. And I mean, yeah, I like what you're saying. I think one of the most important, one of the most important skills, soft skills of every entrepreneur or every leader is curiosity, being curious about the world around you, and also walking around with a very open mind, because it's out of those diversities that you can creativity and innovation comes from. So that's a very, very important soft skill, I would say, for not just entrepreneurs, but also for every leader. But yeah, please tell us more how you view this whole thing.
In theory, that is true. Because if you look at the only layer of diversity that has proven benefit in terms of performance, that is cognitive diversity. And probably that's the most difficult part, because diversity is pretty cool until somebody disagrees with us. After that, not so much. That's when it gets difficult. But that's exactly where the potential lies. But our brain wasn't designed for that. It was designed to create mental shortcuts, little habits, and it's designed to keep us in the comfort zone. So we tend to hang out with people who see the world like we do because it feels comfortable. So especially if you're entrepreneurs, then we have to actively look for people who are different, the ones that we disagree with, the ones who might annoy us because they can see something we cannot. And ultimately, maybe it is uncomfortable, but they can save us a lot of time and hassle because they can notice something we would have never thought about. And that can lead to innovation.
But Chava, like, how would you approach this? So I agree fully with you when it comes to short-term cooperation. So let's say we have a challenge, we hire an expert, they come in with a completely different mind, completely different worldview, and so on, and we make a change. But when it comes to long-term corporations, so my fellow co-workers and fellow leaders, I think it's still somewhat important that we have some common values that we do share. Um, I don't know. I'm trying to come up with an example. Like, I don't know. I'm a very huge on animal rescue.
Mm.
So no matter what you bring to the table, if you are promoter of animal cruelty, I honestly, I don't think we can bridge that gap, and it will be very hard for us to cooperate. Short term, maybe yes, maybe we can leave the egos aside and bridge that gap so that we get to the next level of creativity or innovation. But long term, being together in a company for the next 10 years sounds a little bit crazy.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And that's why we have to build a common ground. So people are different, yes, but often what's missing is the clarity of the vision. Because most people talk about the past, but if you are a real leader or entrepreneur and you can describe the future as vividly as other people can describe the past, then they can get behind you. And once we have that vision, then we can tap into that kind of wealth of creativity and expertise that we have. But I agree with you that we still need values and we have to be aligned. Otherwise, we are going to sabotage ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, core values, company culture. You need a certain fit. Again, I understand the value of diversity. I really do. If I look at my last startup, me and my co-founder, we couldn't be more different. And I do believe that at least for the first year, we probably were both dreaming at the end of the day how we will drown the other person in a spoonful of water, how much we annoyed each other. But now, looking back, I would never do what I did on my own. He would never do what he did on his own. And I grew to be a much better person, and he grew from our relationship. And it was, but we still had common ground. We still shared some
Yeah.
of the core values, and I think that was kind of the connecting tissue for our diversity. But as you know, in the operational part, he was from a military background. Me, wing it style, nice and easy. I don't wake up in the morning. So we were like two completely different people, but we did share some common
Mhm.
ground at the end. Chaba, tell me a little bit about your company. What do you guys do?
The short version is that we teach uncommon mindset. So if you look at, for example, my story, I built one of the fastest growing and biggest restaurant listings in the UK just after I finished the university. And on paper, I had everything to become successful. I had qualifications. I had that kind of vision. We were growing really quickly. But somehow, on a personal level, I couldn't get along with the other CEO, who was French. So we got to the point where we had to get out of the business. It wasn't pretty at all. And that's when I started my research. I didn't understand how come on paper I had everything, but in real life, I couldn't put that theory into practice. So I got certified in a lot of different things, and I wanted to understand what went wrong and how we could fix it. And the result of that research is a framework called Global Disc, which is pretty much the technology behind the uncommon mindset. And this is what we teach now. So around 80% of the business is about certifying coaches and trainers and training companies so they can deliver the training. And also we do corporate training and coaching. Because what you said about
Sorry, go
what you
ahead.
said about diversity was interesting, because what you described is that diversity exists. That is just the pure existence of differences. What we need is the inclusion. Often that is missing, because diversity without inclusion turns into painful liability, and it's much more difficult. But that was a perfect example that you brought up. That yes, you can have disagreements. Yes, you can be different, but can you tolerate the other one? Can you accept them? And let's just tolerate it. Before we celebrate diversity, let's just try to accept other people who are different to us. And that's a huge progress.
No, I absolutely agree on you with that. Um, Disc, can you quickly explain what disc is? And are there different disc methods? Because I know that Tony Robbins has a disc method, and there's probably another one around. So can you give us a little bit of the theory behind the disc method?
Mhm. So the theory has been around for more than 2,500 years. It started with Hippocrates, and hundreds of different researchers came to the same conclusion. There are 4 different personality types. They use different colors, different metaphors, but they came to the same conclusion. All these personality types have their positive and negative traits. They can help you or they can hinder you in your professional, personal life. And in 1928, William Marston published The Emotions of Normal People, and he's the one who created the DISC model. He introduced the DISC dimensions because he assumed that efficient people behave according to the demands and expectations of the environment. And because he didn't trademark anything, it's an open domain. So, like you said, a lot of different companies created their own version, and they can trademark it and they can claim that theirs is the best one. So, this explains how the different personality types tend to behave if they are not influenced by anything or anyone around them, which never happens technically. You can put different people in a team and they are going to conform to certain norms. If that's your family, company, country, doesn't really matter. There's always a normal behavior style that most people conform to. So global disc can give you the 50% that's missing from all of those. And that is the cultural intelligence part. It's about understanding the individual and group dynamics. Because often people believe that you cannot compare personality and culture. And by culture, usually they mean nationalities, which is way beyond that. But if you talk about individual and group mindset, individual and group behavior, then immediately you can see that, yes, you can compare them. Indeed, you cannot even separate them because your personality determines how you want to behave, and your environment or culture determines how you should or technically have to behave. And this is what Global Disc is about.
No, I absolutely agree on that. I mean, I'm fortunate enough that I was able to travel to a whole lot of countries when I was younger. And also, my clientele is from all around the world. And yeah, you see different patterns with Western Europe, you see different patterns with US, you see different patterns with Southeast Asia, and then if you dig a little bit deeper, you see differences between a German and a French, between East Coast and West Coast, between the Philippines and Singapore and Korea, and so on. So, and then you can even go on even a more micro level of is it a big city, or are they from a small town? Are they from a village? And you can see how that culture that was around them shaped them, and what they have, what they're lacking, what they need to work on. And it can be a completely different thing. So, yeah, I absolutely agree on that. But one question, and I think this is kind of like you have people in two camps. Some people love those tests, simple tests where you answer 10, 20, 30, 50 questions. Sometimes they're called personality tests. Sometimes it's this, sometimes this. And they love filling them out. And then they tell everybody who they are on the Myers-Briggs or this or that. And then you have the other camp, I guess, who says, well, no 10 or 20 or 30 question can really figure me out. So I guess you are the best person to ask. Like, I did your test, and I have to say, from my own self-awareness, I would say that it was not maybe 100% there, but I would say 80 to 90%. So it was really, really on point. And it's like, I think 30 questions or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So what is the science behind it? How can you, with just so few questions, tell me a whole lot about me?
Okay, that was a lot of questions.
Yes.
So technically, if you look at the personality assessments, then you can have 21 questions all the way up to hundreds. And often people think that if you have more questions, it guarantees more accuracy, which is not exactly true. Because I think if you hit more than 20, then people just get so bored that they start clicking. And that doesn't help the precision, definitely. So if you look at the DISC assessments, then they measure your behavior in certain situations. So for example, as an entrepreneur, you are like this. Global DISC is about you as a person. And it's not about your projected values, but it's about the underlying drivers that drive your actual behavior. So we have 15 questions, but the 15 questions can generate more than 4,500 potential combinations. And you have to complete the assessment in less than 5 minutes. And the reason is that if you think too much, you overcomplicate it, and it's going to be situational. So for example, if there is a question asking you, do you often interrupt people? You might think, it depends on who I talk to. True, but that's your behavior. It depends on the context. But how you feel inside, do you want to interrupt them? That's you. That's the right question. And then you get your report, and we can learn about these preferences. And once it's done, we can actively work on your behavior flexibility and your comfort zone. And that's the most important part. Because what if you believe in it or if you don't, it doesn't really matter. Because when we overdo our strengths, they become our weaknesses. So the people who think that this is everything and they run around, they use it as an excuse that, oh, I can talk to people because I'm bred. No, that's even worse. Or the ones who completely refuse it. I think that's wrong as well. So that's why we focus on the accurate thinking. Try to see the situation from both perspectives. It depends on what you use it for. And that's why I like calling it the blueprint of why people think and behave differently. It's a blueprint. It doesn't take away the uniqueness of the people, because there's no test that will be 100% accurate. Nobody knows what happened to you a long time ago or in your personal life. We are all unique, but we are predictably different. And once we understand that, we can actively work on it and we can level up, because there's nothing wrong with us, but we can be even better.
Okay, really nicely said. Csaba, let's go to the other side. So most of the audience here are either leaders or entrepreneurs. So they will be the ones who, well, they might use your DISC assessment for themselves to get better self-awareness. But in most cases, they will probably send their employees or future employees to do the test so that they can get a bit more of the insight. So if we move into that direction, like what is the best approach to the whole DISC assessment? When should we do it? How should we use it? If you can talk us a little bit through that, and if you have some good examples of maybe some clients that, you know, some before after story, I know that our audience loves that. So if we spend a little bit of time on that.
Okay. So I think if there's a leader who sends the employees to take the assessment, that's not necessarily the best idea, because it starts with them. We have to start on the top and they have to take it. So, for example, if you take the assessment and you learn about your preferences, that's a lot of information. But it comes alive when you compare it to something or someone. How do your personal preferences relate to what is normal and rewarded around you in your company? How do they relate to me? How big is the mindset gap between you and me? There are a lot of courses that would promise that I can remove all your biases and judgments, but that's technically a lie. The only people who have no biases and judgments are the ones who are dead, pretty much. So the real question is, how big is the distance between your biases and mine? That would be much more accurate. And that's why we need to understand the connection between the individual and group dynamics. So, for example, what you described in terms of culture, that is all part of it. You're right. And we all belong to 15 or 20 culture groups at the same time. Country of origin or geography is just a tiny, tiny fraction of that. It's your education and background, it's your hobby, it's your gender, generation, profession, religion, a lot of different things. We all belong to 15 or 20 groups at the same time. So even if you talk to someone in your own family, what are the chances that they belong to the same 15 or 20 groups like you? It's pretty much zero. Every single conversation is a cross-cultural dialogue, but most people don't know about that. Having said that, there are a lot of intercultural models which are technically international ones. They focus on the country of origin. But more than 80% of cultural differences exist within countries, not between them. If the country-specific approach was correct, there would be no millennial issue, for example. And according to research, the bottom three, so technically the birth container of culture, are gender, generation, and country of origin. Because you don't choose them. It's not up to you. But you learn how to navigate efficiently. But if you look at your profession, then hopefully you're going to choose the one that is the closest one to your personal preferences. So, for example, we had a bigger training for a Fortune 300 company in Germany, and they employed a lot of Brazilian engineers, and we had to create a high-performing team. So we approached the challenge from the country-specific approach. Of course, the Brazilian and the German approach, they're different. And we can point out the statistically average differences to widen the gap, but that's not a really good idea. And when they looked at the global disk results, it turned out that those Brazilian engineers were much more German inside than most Germans. And this is when everything changed. They realized that they found the right environment where they can be themselves. And it all changed. And that was the beauty of it. So instead of widening the gap, let's build a common ground. And then we can learn how to make the most of our differences, not the other way around. We don't choose our country of origin. We can be very different. And at least 20-25% of the people are the exact opposite of what is normal around them. Another example, if you look at, for example, 10 engineers from 10 different countries, and you look at the profiles, the cognitive diversity one, then it's very likely that they are going to be much more similar inside than 10 random people from the same country.
Yeah.
And that's the key.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, if you take 10 software engineers from completely different parts of the world, they will probably have more in common than what she said, like 10 completely random people from different age groups and different professions and so on. So yeah, I do understand the bridge that you are trying to bridge, well, the gap that you're trying to bridge by letting people do this self-assessment so that they can start learning about each other and the things that connect them that might not be out there in your face on the surface, but on a deeper level, and creating those special bonds and connections that can then happen in creating a team that works really well in achieving whatever their goals are. Well, Csaba, if you could, give our viewers one or two tips, something that maybe they could do right away or tomorrow that would start them in that direction, in bridging those gaps and embracing the diversity better within their companies, or for the leaders watching us within their teams, what would one or two tips or advices from your end be?
There's an uncomfortable one, which is, let's try to pop our cognitive bubble. And by that, I mean that we often hang out with people like us. We watch news and programs we agree with, and we just amplify our beliefs, and we just harden all those assumptions into facts and universal truths. So if you really want to see a situation from different perspectives, try to hang out with people that you would normally not talk to, or try to watch something that triggers you, something that annoys you. Just because you like something, it doesn't mean it's 100% true. Just because you dislike something, it doesn't mean that it's fake news. And that's exactly where we can practice the uncommon mindset. Because if you can see the same situation from different perspectives, you can make better decisions. And if you are more interested in getting it right than being right, then you can hurry up and you can make progress. When was the last time that you had a disagreement with someone and the other person said, I think you're right. You know what? Let's go with that. For that, you have to be really confident. But if your self-esteem depends on how many people like you and if you are right or not, that's a really fragile place. So before we try to manage other people, let's learn how to lead ourselves. And that's the key. When we work with senior leaders, they're always passionate about learning how to manage other people. And when I tell them that day one is about you, because I promise you, I can tell you a lot you don't know about yourself, and it's not even your fault, then they become a bit more uncomfortable. But we do it for a reason. That's the foundation. If you know who you are, what you stand for, then you don't have to bully anyone to feel important, and you don't have to hide to feel safe. That's the foundation.
Well, Csaba, let me share one little thing with you. I often talk about that to my clients. So every time when I have to go into a conversation with somebody, and especially if I know that it might not be a comfortable conversation, whether because of the topic or because of the differences, I don't name it, like, a conversation, or this is going to be a tough one. I call it growth conversation. And that makes me go into the conversation by being curious, listening to try and understand them, not to respond back. I will never respond back on that same conversation. I will gather everything that I can. I might ask a few more clarifying questions, and then my normal response is, okay, I don't have a response right now. Let me sleep on it. Let me marinate a little bit on this, and then we can jump on another call in a day or two and continue from there. Because first, I really want to understand what you're trying to tell me before we continue the conversation. If we do it right away, it will be just back and forth, and our egos will want to win. So for me, every time when I have to have those conversations, I call them growth conversations, because I'm already anticipating the growth. And if I approach it in the right way, then growth will always happen. This or that, maybe we'll find a third way, maybe we'll make a compromise. Maybe I'll say, I understand your point, but I still want to do it my way. We disagree, but fuck it, that's the way it is.
Well, I see, that's another level of self-awareness. And because you can reframe that event, because the brain would register something uncomfortable as pain, I need to avoid it. But what you describe is reframing that, for example, an event or a situation can be painful, but also positive, even if it's not pleasant. And if you can reframe that, then we can get out of the comfort zone. But it's almost like going against nature when you tell people, just get out of your comfort zone. It's good for you. No, your brain is not designed for that, unless you understand why you do it. And that's how you can grow. You don't get
Well,
stronger in the gym. You get stronger when you go home and you eat and sleep after the training.
I mean, it did take me many, many, many years of practicing all of that. I think I've started working really deeply on myself 2010. So it took me quite a lot of years, a whole lot of practicing to really brainwash myself to the point where now nothing, I don't understand anything that happens to me as negative. Shit happens to me. But I like my mind just goes automatically to what can I learn? How can I grow? But yeah, it takes a whole lot of time and a whole lot of practicing and being mindful and emotional intelligence and this and that and I still have a long way to go to be at even higher level with this. Csaba, two questions.
Yes.
Question number one, if people who are watching this are finding this conversation interesting and they want to explore the topic more, experiment with the topic even more, what's the best way to reach out to you, to go to our website, to do the test? How do you do the test? I mean, I got an invite from your co-worker, but how does everybody else do it? So if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, the best option is LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect with everyone who is interested in this topic. The website is icq.global. And if you want to learn more about it, I think the best option is the book itself, The Uncommon Sense in Unusual Times. It's not just a book, it's a hybrid book, which means that it's seamlessly integrated with an interactive coaching platform. So when you get the book, you just have to email me. There's a special email in it, and you send me an email, and then you get access to the Quest, which is the platform. And then you are going to get invited to take the assessment. You also get a certificate at the end. So the book itself comes with around £500 worth of resources. So this is what I see as investment in the future and in a better world. Information doesn't lead to transformation. We need to experience it. So that's why I try to facilitate that journey. And once you finish, you can also join our Facebook group and you can hang out with really cool people who are committed to growth.
One more question before the last one. So when you do the test, when you take the test and you get this long report back, very detailed report, what if you can't maybe understand everything clearly? You need some interpretation because maybe certain things are contradicting each other or something like that. Do you guys also offer some guided way to get the results and not so much to just understand the results, but also to create an action plan that will follow out of those results and maybe things that I want to change or do differently?
So there are two things. First of all, they can contact us. We have more than 110 licensed partners in 38 countries, so we can do that. The other thing is the Quest, which is about going deeper. And once you finish, we can also work on your comfort zone and behavior flexibilities. There's a separate program for that. And the next Uncommon Mindset Bootcamp is coming up in 2 months' time, probably, which is practical, blissfully uncomfortable and challenging, but it's an amazing experience. So that would be the best part.
Perfect. Tell us a little bit about the bootcamp.
So the bootcamp is about the two reasons why most opportunities, time and energy are lost. One is friction with people who think and behave differently. The other one is friction with ourselves, self-sabotage. And then we go into the 7 areas where we lose most of the potential. We finished the last one last week, and we had an amazing group of people. And it was interesting to see that the top 3 reasons where most people lose most of the potential in that group, and they were really experienced people: self-sabotage, self-inclusion, and capacity. It's all about us. And it also makes sense. If you cannot work with yourself, how could you work with other people? If you cannot accept yourself, how could you be inclusive towards others? If you don't have capacity, which is about the flexibility, then you're going to react instead of responding. And you just want to hang out with people like you because you have to save energy and time, and it's just comfortable. So step one is all about the mindset. Let's work on that, and then we can progress to the second level, which is the uncommon sense, understanding other people's logic. And if you can do that, then step three, you can get along with yourself and others. And that's important as well, because you can walk away from any relationships except for the one with yourself. I mean, you can do it, but just once, and that's final. And if you can do that, step four, get ahead. If you look at charismatic people, successful people, yes, they are smart, most of them, but it's all about the people skills. They don't have to prove anything. You just feel comfortable being with them. They don't have to prove that you are better than them. They make you feel like you're the most important person in the room. And they just project that kind of Zen attitude and composition. Pretty much like you.
Well, thank you. I absolutely love the topic of emotional intelligence, and it's a bit similar where you have four pillars. Everybody wants to skip to the last one, which is managing other people. But the first three, the first two are the most important: self-awareness and managing yourself. And until you master those two, you can't go to awareness of the space, and you certainly will fail if you go directly to managing others without understanding and knowing yourself. And then there's this whole thing where 8 to 9 out of 10 people have completely wrong self-awareness. Not wrong, but the way their surrounding sees them is completely different to how they see themselves. So bridging that gap, that's a whole nother story as well, where you need to have the balls to ask hard questions and just shut up and listen what everybody has to tell you, not respond, but go back and really rethink whether you're walking the talk or not, because very often we are saying something, but we are not doing that thing. And that's what others see, but we often don't really see that we are doing the opposite. And integrity, one of the most important skills when it comes to leaders and entrepreneurs. If you don't have integrity, you have nothing. Csaba, before, it's so nice talking to you. And I just come up with new questions, but this is absolutely the last one. And this is, so, I've asked you quite a few questions, but maybe there's something I didn't. Maybe, there's something important that you want to share with the audience before we say goodbye. So this is kind of like the last golden nugget of wisdom moment. So anything you want to share with fellow entrepreneurs, the floor is yours.
One of the most important skills that we practice is how to respond instead of reacting. So next time you have a really intense negative emotion, somebody triggers you, somebody annoys you, then don't react immediately. Just stop for a second, because chances are there is a misunderstanding. And try to find out what they meant exactly. And this is the most difficult part, because it's easy to preach about fasting when you're full, but it's difficult when you're hungry. But that's exactly when we can learn and we can experience and we realize that, it makes sense. And there was a misunderstanding. So ask them why, instead of just reacting.
Perfect. Lovely ending to a very lovely interview. Csaba, it was so lovely to have you as a guest. I really enjoyed this conversation. I learned a few new things by getting to know you. Well, maybe a nice disclosure at the end. So I used to be in that camp that, no, 20 questions can't define me. And every time I was trying to fill out those forms, I was like, well, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. And well, I'm missing the fifth option, which would be me, and stuff like that. But then when I got invited to fill out your disc questionnaire, I really did it. And I was really surprised with what I got back. So it was quite an eye opener. And this conversation right now, even more an eye opener into what you do and your world. And I will be enjoying very much getting to know you even better, getting to know what you do even better. And seeing other opportunities that might be out there based out of this introduction to you. So, Csaba, thank you so much. I really appreciate you for being my guest. And of course, I wish you nothing but all the best going forward.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, guys. So another Monday, another interview. Boy, this was a really interesting one. Topics like this are really, really close to my heart. And I love learning new things. I love being curious. I've always been curious. My mom was always fed up with me asking questions, and that's why she started buying me all the encyclopedias that are out there. And I just keep on being curious. And it's so wonderful when you meet a person like Csaba, who opens your eyes to another new thing. And like I said, I did the questionnaire. I was like, nah, another 16 personality types thing. Nah, this will be nothing. And then when I really got the results and when I read it, I was like, is there somebody there who really knows me and who I am and what I do? So it was quite eye-opening. So I invite you, all of you, to go to his website and just explore it for yourself. Buy the book. That's something I'm going to do right away. And just enjoy the journey. I hope all of you enjoyed the interview as much as I did, and that all of you learned something new. Next Monday, we have another amazing guest. And until then, I just wish everybody, all of you, to be healthy, to be safe wherever you are in the world, whatever craziness is going around where you are. And see you next Monday. Bye.